Just because something has been reiterated to you over and over and over again doesn't mean it's true. For example, how many times have you heard an OB/GYN or somebody in a white coat say, "I'm the captain of this ship and I'm calling the shots"? Just because it's been said over and over doesn't make it true. So let's talk about the cardinal movements of labor. How do we know that this actually happens inside the uterus as a baby is passing through the pelvis? You might say, well, they could do it MRIs or something. No, an MRI requires you to be motionless. And if a baby is moving and we're trying to document these movements, that conditionally is going to make MRI very, very limited. You could also use something like fluoroscopy, but that requires us using a high-intensity X-ray beam focused on the uterus of a birthing baby throughout the entire labor, and that could take days. And also, who wants to be blasting a baby with X-rays? Well, maybe ultrasound. Maybe somebody sat there for hundreds of births and used an ultrasound to look very, very carefully. They'd have to be really, really good with an ultrasound. Very, very carefully at what this baby is doing from a rotational standpoint, from a neck flexion or extension standpoint. Maybe. But here's what I've found. If you go back to very, very old textbooks, like this Manual of Midwifery from 86, the movements are described, but they're really kind of just conjecture based on what we know about the anatomic pelvis. There were initially 4 cardinal movements described, and that was expanded to 7 in this later edition of this other textbook from 1916. And then, of course, there's these really elegant AJOG articles that show, in fact, there are these movements, right? Here's an ultrasound of a baby rotating this way or that way. But that doesn't mean that every single baby goes through these movements. It just means you are now corroborating this information that has been passed down by storytelling, really. And because it makes sense, we just say, yeah, look, this confirms that, right? It doesn't really confirm it. If every single baby went through each of these movements in a sequential way, every single baby would come out the same way, like LOA or whatever else. But some babies come out acyclitic, they come out LOT, they come out ROT, they come out OP, direct OP, they come out breech, right? And so this notion that every single baby goes through these 7 different cardinal movements, I just don't buy it. But does it even matter? Even in these ancient textbooks from over 100 years ago, they make the distinction between a nulliparous pelvis and a multiparous pelvis and how these movements can differ. Not to mention what we know to be at least 4 distinct archetypes of pelvic shape. So why am I pushing back on this in the first place? Well, I think if we are going to say physiologic birth is important and we need to understand the cardinal movements, and you want to think like an OB/GYN doesn't know this, guys, we're able to rip out those 7 movements in our sleep in our intern year of residency. Well, I don't think it's unimportant. I just think that we focus way too much on the physical, mechanical parts of labor when we know, just from listening to our clients, that this is not merely a physical process. So I almost feel like when we focus just on these things like the cardinal movements, and we want to sound super educated and smart, but we haven't even gone back to the primary sources or thought critically about where did we even develop these notions, it actually is an impediment to our greater understanding and awareness of this incredible rite of passage that is childbirth. Whether you're an OB/GYN, a midwife, a doula, a childbirth educator, it's the same. Just because something has been reiterated over and over and over does not make it true. Curious about your thoughts?